Hello, everybody. Another video here from Fiduciary Wealth, talking about relocating to Gibraltar. And one thing a lot of people are interested in as part of their move is property. So our resident property expert, Paul Correa here, to tell us more about that. So property in Gibraltar, what sort of insights can you give us, Paul?
Matt, again, thank you for the kind introduction and thank you for labeling me an expert. Let me reassure listeners that I'm not, but I think I know a thing or two at least, being local. So no, I mean Gibraltar is one of those markets where the prices really hold up really well. It's a small landmass. It happens in capital cities. It happens in small places, Hong Kong and so on, where prices hold up really well, even when there's a global um, downturn, like we saw during the global financial crisis. We saw 9/11, events of that nature, where you would expect property prices to tumble. It doesn't. These are long-term residents that hold on to their property, come what may, and generally they hold really well. And COVID being an extreme example, where prices actually doubled over a short period of time. So prices now, the average price of a property is around £860,000. Um, that gives you an idea. But of course, you have to understand that the outliers, those properties at the extreme end of the scale, often, increase the average price. But I think there's a broad spectrum of properties you can buy, from probably from 250 upwards. But no, property is not cheap. But on the upside, if you buy a property in Gibraltar, there's a great opportunity to make some capital gains, which are free of taxes, when you dispose of your main residence. So no, property always holds up well. And there's different districts, Matt. And really, the choice, we had a client from London recently, and yeah, they had very specific needs in terms of what property they need. If they're elderly, then you don't want to go buy a property in the upper town area. So it really depends on the individual and their requirements, their family requirements. And there's different districts, different price ranges. From, you have the Ocean Village Marina. Uh, that is an area which has restaurants and bustling night day and night activity. Is a very nice location, still close to the town. Then you have Queensway Quay, that's really expensive. Another marina, very quiet marina compared to Ocean Village, but the property prices are really high, but incredible views of the bay and Morocco and Spain. Um, you've got Upper Town, and then you've got other districts. The South District, which is possibly, some areas of the South District have the most expensive properties, and believe it or not, some of them fetch up to 20 million. Um, and those are more spacious, lower density properties, with, swimming pools and all the amenities that come with it. So yeah, it depends on the individual's budget.
Yeah.
There's a property for all budgets, I would say. If you are coming to Gibraltar on as a category two, then it has to be a qualifying property, and those qualifying properties are more expensive. Um, but again, depends on whether it's an individual on their own moving, and then it has to be adequate for the individual and their family. So if it's an individual, they could have a really small property. Even a Cat 2 won't set them back very much. If it's a family with young children, then of course, then it's probably 1 million plus. It all depends. But very often the people that come over, not always uh, establishing residency on the basis of obtaining a Category 2 status certificate.
Yeah.
So
One question I get sometimes, Paul, is people coming here, they're applying for their residency, we're helping them with that. And they say, well, do I need to buy? Can I rent? Should I buy? Should I rent? Do you have an opinion on that?
I do have an opinion, but that's my personal opinion. It's neither right or wrong because every individual is different. But the way I see it is, if you're moving to another country, why commit to buy unless you're absolutely sure that that's the property of your dreams? You don't want to act in haste and buy a property only to realize it's the wrong location, it's too small, too large. You've paid over the odds. Um, you you know the place is the location is not ideal. Either it's too far from town, or it's too close, or it's too noisy. Why are you making that decision so quickly? I would make a lot more sense unless you know Gibraltar inside out. You've been many times and you're very, very clear what type of property you want and what's your budget. It's almost you know good advice to tell people who are relocating to consider renting for a year whilst they look around for a property of their dreams. A property that they really
Yeah.
they're going to hold for the time they spend in Gibraltar, rather than buy a property and then turn it round and then buy another one, because moving properties, as you said in another webinar, is quite stressful.
Yeah.
So renting makes a lot of sense. And if you could, together with the real estate agent and the landlord, if you could have some kind of break clause, maybe, that you could get out after 6 months, then maybe that's enough time to look around, shop around, and find that property that you want. So I know that everyone is different. Some people prefer to buy because Brits in particular, bricks and mortar are important. So the thought of renting is not very appealing, but if it's for 6 months to a year, why not?
No, I'd agree. And people think that, okay, is that kind of saying like renting is throwing money away. But then if you're buying based on, you've come for a week here, you're rushing around looking at properties, you might actually save money in the long run. When you're renting, you can look at your leisure, you wait for the right property, you wait for the right price and pick the right spot for you. So yeah, as you say, each of their own. We can't tell people what to do. But I guess the key is and also, when people are applying for residency and going through that process, a rental property is equally as valid as an owned property as part of your residency application. So yeah, perfect.
If I may just add one thing, which is highly relevant. Individuals will move to Gibraltar, and more often than not, they will stay. But it might be that they move only to find that they find it hard to settle, and they decide to move back. If you purchase a property, now you have to dispose of the assets. If you're renting and you find out within that year that you're trialing that this is not for you, you don't have a financial commitment, because even though property prices hold well and by and large they go up in value, the timing might not be right, and you realize a capital loss. For instance, the prices during COVID almost doubled in some district and areas, but then when the treaty, we exited the EU, and then property prices went through the roof. And then if you look at 2023, 24, prices have really come a bit down, slightly down for the first time in quite a while. So they've corrected. The yield on rental property has come down as well, which it had to, because it cannot continue just one direction. And people are waiting to see what happens with the treaty. So if you buy and then decide to go back and the timing is not quite right, you might be if that property investment is a sizable part of your estate, you might have to liquidate it, and there could be you may suffer financial loss. And you're thinking, okay, that could have been avoided if I was a bit more, I don't know, a bit more careful,
Yeah. Just a little bit patient.
a bit
Yeah.
patient, I would
Yeah.
say.
Yeah. No, because from my experience as well, you have people coming here and they've been on holiday a few times. They're certain they want to live here, but living somewhere while you're on holiday is so much different to living here. You live here and it's a different experience, and it makes sense to do that. But there's various different types of property in Gibraltar, Paul, and there's something that suits pretty much most people or their budgets. And I guess it's just a case of having a look around and seeing what's available.
Completely. I think it's, be calm, be measured. There's no need to rush in, to act in haste and then repent at leisure. Take your time, look around. If you're not certain, rent for a year, and then you have a full year if you're retired to look around and search for that perfect property that you really want to live in for the remainder of your days. That's the advice we would give.
Perfect. Wonderful. Well, thank you, Paul. And thank you
Pleasure.
for those watching. Feel free to subscribe to our YouTube for more insights, and we will speak to some of you soon. All the best. Bye.